We're in Washington, D.C. Let's spend a few moments now with Bob Young, who is the Chief Economist of the American Farm Bureau Federation. And Bob, as we look, spring planting, lots of activity, and it seems like everybody's focusing in on wanting to predict what the farm income and how things are in farm country. What are some of the keys that you're seeing?
Well, obviously we're going to talk about lower farm income this year than we did last year. Some numbers, USDA would say that we're off $30 billion this year relative to last year, and frankly, I probably wouldn't argue with that a whole lot. Much lower crop prices, obviously, and plus you don't have the ability to kind of price forward some of those, or did not have the ability to forward price some at some of those higher prices we saw last January. Livestock markets, I think, as the year rolls forward, our dairy prices obviously quite a bit lower than they were at the same time last year. And I think we're going to see pork prices, chicken prices lower than they were last year. And by the end of the year, could even talk about cattle prices starting to work their way down as well.
The avian influenza outbreak is causing some concern in the grain trade. Is this a long prospect that may show a while to recover, or is it just a blip and something that people are just looking at as trying to find a way to keep the market lower?
Well, I think it's a very uncertain situation at this stage of the game. If we end up with kind of massive impacts, if it works its way into the broiler flock in particular, then I think we could begin to see some real challenges. As it is right now, we've had some relatively minor. If if you're the last guy killed in the war, it's still, but so we've had some on the turkey side, obviously some impacts there. Finally did have an outbreak in one of the layer flocks. But I think if we stay at that stage, then I think it's not that big a deal. If it does work its way into the broiler side, though, we could talk about some significant numbers. I think the real challenge, though, becomes what it does to our domestic prices for these products, because if we're so dependent upon export markets at this stage of the game that if we get some big export moves, then that's going to back product up in the domestic market, and we could have some substantial impact there.
We talk about trade and how things are going to move, so on and so forth. We talk a little bit about the economic impacts. The numbers are coming out. Are you kind of in agreement with what might happen if we do get Trans-Pacific and some of these other trade agreements done, that will really be another bolster to the farm economy?
Oh, I think so. It's not going to be a quick thing. It's not going to be, we pass the first get TPA through and then pass TPP, that, the next day things happen. It's going to be, it'll play out over several years, decades even for that matter, but I think it'll certainly put us in a position where we'll be much more competitive. We're very price competitive, cost competitive at this stage of the game. Our real challenge is being able to get other countries to lower their barriers to actually let our product in. Dairy products going into Japan, for example, that if we could get into that market, I think we could talk about some substantial gains for our dairy producers. But again, 5-10 years down the road.
Let's look 5-10 years down the road with that next generation of agriculture. A report came out from the Federal Reserve that said, things really are okay. They're starting to settle more, kind of that, it's almost business as usual. Do you think this may be another window maybe to have another group of that next generation of producers to be able to come in?
Well, I think it's possible. I think we had enough optimism in the sector. We've seen that we can be very profitable. I think we actually had, my barometer is when farmers come to me and tell me that they're complaining about paying taxes, that's a pretty good signal to me. And we've certainly had farmers come in and talk about complaining about paying taxes. Now that we're kind of past that point and we're back to more normal kind of pricing structures, income structures, et cetera, and I think as interest rates also adjust, that we're going to see land prices make some moves down, and I think that'll open up some opportunities for some younger producers, some other producers decide now's the time to get in.
All right, Bob. Hey, thanks for the update.
Anytime.
Bob Young, who is Chief Economist with the American Farm Bureau Federation, has joined us from Washington. I'm Ken Rogers.